let's bring out our first guest. Susan, tell me if we're going too fast.
She's doing just fine.
So let me just preface our first guest. Our first guest wrote a book recently, and I remember him when I didn't live. I've lived here for 12 years in New York, and when I didn't live here before, I would go to this bar that was called G Lounge. And the owner of that bar, Michael McGrail, is in the audience, and
Woo!
He has given us such an opportunity.
Yes, he has.
And G Lounge, for people that don't know, was the hot, yay spot that you wanted to see and be seen at all throughout the late 90s into 2000s. And I would come into the city and I would remember this guy. His name was Achilles. How can't you remember a name Achilles? And I had a huge crush on him, and we will put him on the spot in a second. But he wrote this tell-all book about, it's a memoir, and it's called Raised by the Bar. And Achilles Yeldell, come up here, because I want you to talk about your new book. This is it.
Come sit next to me, girl.
Talk really close into that mic like it's you know what. And just saying. Yeah. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. Yes.
Of course.
So I have to say something like, I don't know if you remember, I'm just going to put you on the spot, like, but we did go on a date.
Yes,
once.
we did. I was telling Corey about that.
And I totally was waiting to, and we've been talking, and I haven't mentioned that. I know it was going to be awkward, but that's what I do. And yeah, do you remember I met your basset hound?
Yes, I had a basset hound, Apollo, and we were. It was in Hell's Kitchen. I think it was on 9th Avenue. The restaurant.
I know, not that memorable, but for me, for you.
No,
I
remember
for me. Memorable for me.
No, I do remember it. Yes.
Anyways, congratulations on this book.
No, okay. Now that he made that face, let me go ahead and just explain that when we went on the date, it was very. It was interesting to me because Steve and we really hit it off from the get-go.
We did.
And we were just talking, whatever. The date was great. The conversation was great. But to me, it felt like I was on a date with myself. I thought we were just so similar. And I was like, I really like this guy and so forth. I guess we could have easily been raised like a year apart in the same household or whatever.
Oh my God, how long did you rehearse that answer? Because that's like perfection. I love it. Just stop right now.
It really was how I felt. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, wow, he's really nice. I want to be friends. But then I think we can all relate to where you meet someone that you don't, in terms of like, let's say the chemistry, sexual chemistry, whatever, it might not be there, but you want it to be there.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like on the flip side, where sometimes you feel a sexual chemistry that you know should not be there.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why, to me, I always felt that chemistry was something that you can't, as much as we might try to create it, to make it happen, or sometimes you try to deny it. You're with someone who is safe and secure and nice, and yet then you meet someone else who's like, my God, this is like so amazing. And so it was just kind of went that way. So that's why I think our friendship has endured. But
and guys, don't worry, you didn't read it. I'm going to make you read it. But so I'll ask these questions. But Achilles, this is really a page turner, and I'm not Mr. Reader here. I was like devouring it. But part of it, we'll get into your coming out story. But in general, it seems like you're looking for love from coming out period into as of recent, and there's so many beautiful stories that are about that.
Well,
Can
then
you talk about that?
I would say, in 1995, I think is when it takes off, and as far as like, I'm 46 now, so I know that I was 21 when I came out of the closet.
Miami.
Yeah, in Miami. And for those who don't know, in that year in Miami, there was no gay pride parade. There was no gay community center.
Wow.
Ellen still hadn't come out of the closet. There was nothing that was gay. The one thing that was the tipping stone for me, seeing something that was gay was actually Tom Hanks and Antonio Banderas in the movie Philadelphia. Tom Hanks with his A's and so forth, and he was like doing his thing. But they slow danced in his living room in this one scene in the movie, and I just saw these two men being romantic. That was my takeaway. The movie obviously had a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
But my takeaway was like, wow, two men can be together, these two movie stars and so forth. So
Got to fix it. There you go.
okay, so for me, I just really didn't realize until I saw what was possible. So once I saw that was possible, that's where the book kind of launches off, and I thought that I was going to
Explode?
I thought that I was going to go to a club and find my husband right off the bat. Yes, that's what I thought.
So
was
you
gonna
guys,
happen,
the
yes.
book is hilarious. I won't go into all the details, but it's really hilarious and telling. And I just would want to ask you, how did you have a moment that you decided how vulnerable you wanted to be? And because I know you've been trying to write different things, and knowing that you're going to see people, what does that do to your mind and all that?
Okay, so there was the book took longer than I thought because there was different versions of it. The first version of this book was very Sex in the City, scandals, and like all of this kind of stuff. And I think it would have sold a lot better if I went with that version. But I didn't feel like I could stand behind it. I felt like some of the people who were in the book that would see themselves, even if no one else saw them, knew that it was them because I changed the names and stuff, that they would somehow feel embarrassed by it, or they might see people posting stuff about, oh, that person was this. And I was like, I don't want anyone to read the book and feel embarrassed for having had whatever interaction they had with me. So that also changed the version of it. So I went from the standpoint of, what do I wish I knew before coming out into the gay scene? You know, so because I had my own ideas, and I feel like when it comes to sex, as a great example, like when you're going to go ahead and have sex, gay sex was never really explained to me. I didn't know what it was. And
Yeah,
then
we didn't get that novel, that book, right?
Yeah, and I know
Yeah,
that
they
there's
didn't
no
cover that.
manual to it.
They didn't
Well,
have Pornhub?
I do believe that every gay man, I think a lot of people just in general, whether they're straight, gay, whatever, but for a lot of gay men, they go into the gay scene, into gay sex with this list of, I'm not going to do this, I won't do that, I won't do this unless he does it first. You know, you have all these like rules in your head.
Yeah.
But then when you meet a guy, which later on in the chapter, like, you know, for a very long time I was like, I'm not going to bottom until I'm in love. Yeah, it's just, it's all right. And I said that when I was 21, and that lasted until I was 30. Thank you very much. But then what happened? I was 30. I fell in love, but I didn't know how to bottom. And I was like, I'm not going to be any good at it, so he's not going to want me. So I was like, what would it...
Now what do I do?
Exactly. So who's going to show me at that late age? By that point, I was already a bartender at G Lounge. It's like the idea of a G Lounge bartender not knowing how to bottom. I was like, I just don't think, how am I going to be sexy when I'm doing
I'm
it?
sure some of those go-go's could help you find out.
You know, the go-go's are people too. They all have their own.
So here's a question for you. Throughout the years, I mean, we all have our crushes on bartenders when we go out. I certainly do. My friends will attest that Steve and a bartender. But what
God.
I know you talk a lot about it in the book, but just to give our audience a little bit of perspective on what are you thinking when someone's coming on to you and they're...
Well, okay, so before I was ever a bartender, I went to a bar that I won't name called Barracuda. And
We're not editing this either.
I went there.
It's live.
And I was on my own, and there was a bartender there who I thought was really cute, and I thought there was a chemistry there, chatting and talking, whatever, so forth. And you know, I was tipping him all this money to show him how much I really liked him.
And he's like,
I know you waste a lot of money, right?
Real romantic. So I was like complete trash. So then I was like, well, I'm getting a little messy, so let me go ahead and leave, and then I'll come back later. Because he said, well, just come get me when I get off of work.
Yeah.
So I left, and when I went back, I remember I was knocking on the door. Barracuda, of course, had closed a little early. And I was telling the guy, no, he wants to see me, And I saw through the crack of the door when somebody went to tell the bartender, I saw him saying like, no, I want nothing to do with this guy.
Aww.
So in my drunken stupor, I was able to really remember that particular piece of information.
Aww.
So I always told myself, once I became a bartender years later, I said, I will not lead somebody on just so
gonna
that I
play
can
that
make tips.
game.
I won't do it. Now, my wonderful old former boss who's here in the audience, he was all, you know, sex
Mr.
sells, blah, blah, blah. That's all fine and well. But it was like, I didn't like the fact that some people's feelings can legitimately be hurt by
Yeah.
that. So
They
you know,
do. They hurt really
and they
bad.
can hurt. So now, did I lie? Absolutely. People say, oh, so do you have a boyfriend? And I would say, yes, I have a boyfriend if I was not interested in them. But then I would say, but you know, you're so adorable. If I didn't have a boyfriend, you know, I totally would, you know, so they can walk away feeling better. I feel like people don't go to the bar just for sex. I think people go to a bar so that they can feel better. And now, sex is an easy way to go. Yes, sex sells, but it's not the only thing that sells.
That's
so
true.
I felt like if you go to the bar and you make a really good friend, which is way more valuable than any trick, in my opinion, then you walk away feeling better. So I.
When's the follow-up self-help book coming out? Because I'm like all about it. I am on board.
Well, I would have loved
Oprah.
a gay self-help book kind of a thing.
I'm telling
how to
you,
be a
I will
bottom.
produce it. I will help produce it.
Yes,
That's your next book,
In
How
the,
to Be
in
a
the
Bottom.
book, it shows how I tried to be a good bottom. It was pretty embarrassing, but I felt that it was important to talk about things that I wished someone had spoken to me about. I did not expect as many people to read the book as who have read the book. I live in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, and they've been reading that book plenty, and I was not prepared for that very Christian community to.
And Achilles,
Very
thank you so
Christian
much for
community
coming
was
out.
reading your book.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
They just really liked me, but they weren't expecting.
Oh, and he wrote a
that.
book too, and then their eyebrows are going.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, before we let you go, and everybody needs to read Raised by the Bar, a memoir by Achilles Yeldell. It's on our site. You can get it on Amazon.
Thank you.
It's really it's a great summer read. It's really fun. But for this World Pride, what would you want to tell younger folks or anybody really? What's your message?
My message would be really for all the generations. You know, when I was in college, I did a report on Stonewall. We had to do an event or whatever, and in Miami back then, being gay was not really something that they talked about much. But I did report on Stonewall, and I think that a lot of gay people don't realize, the LGBT community, what they don't realize is that back when that riot happened, it was against the law to be dancing with somebody of the same sex.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when the cops would break in on their random raids, you know, these gay men would have to switch up with like the lesbians to just pretend that they were dancing with that one.
Oh,
that there are
Lord.
so many things that we take for granted now that people had to really,
Yeah.
really fight to go ahead and be able to do. The fact that people say, oh, this bar is tired. The fact that you have a bar and that you
Thank
can
you.
choose from so many different
Yeah.
bars can really go ahead and the fact that we benefit from it, but to at least take that one day out of the year to really go ahead and be grateful
No,
for
that's
that.
that's awesome.
Thank
That's
you
really
so
awesome.
much. Yeah. Achilles Yeldell, the book is called Raised by
thank you.
the Bar. Thank you.